Welcome to Mysteretical, where we take a theoretical approach to solving mysteries. I'm Lynn. Sorry.
I was like, I got this. And I'm JP.
I'm leaving all of that in. So put your cook pot on your head and prepare yourself for transportation. Today we're discussing Camp Hope.
Oh, hero?
Yep.
I was like, that's not the right word. Another 4-letter H word.
I guess I should redo this intro. I also wrote Camp Hope script, so I might have written Camp Hope a few times.
A lot of times? Okay. We'll listen
So
out for it.
just catch me every time I do it.
Okay.
Welcome to Mysteretical, where we take a theoretical approach to solving mysteries. I'm Lynn.
And I'm JP.
So put your cook pot on your head and prepare yourself for transportation. Today we're discussing Camp Hero.
Ooh.
Not Camp Hope.
Not Camp Hope.
I think I did look up Camp Hope at some point. And it brought me to some like Jesus camp type situation. And I was like, that's not what I'm looking for.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So if you need to find the Lord, maybe that's the place for you. Yeah. You not hear me?
It keeps like catching. I don't know if it's my internet.
So unlike our normal episodes, we're going to jump right in because this one has a lot of information.
Oh.
So one reason that I chose this case was because while stumbling around on the internet and our huge master list of cases, I wanted to find one that wasn't a murder or a missing person, since that's all I've done since episode 4.
Yeah, I know. Honestly,
and Halloween.
Yeah.
It's
good.
It's
fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And then I found Camp Hero. So here's a good old-fashioned conspiracy theory that I'm shocked I never heard of. And then I started watching a doc about it, and I became like absolutely enthralled because it was so fascinating.
Really?
Yes.
I can't believe I've never heard of it. I mean,
I know.
as we go along with the story, I recognize stories more than I recognize names. Like,
right.
So I might recognize the story, but
yeah,
from what I've heard of it, I haven't heard of it.
From the name Camp Hope or Camp Hero, you've never heard of either.
No.
The Jesus camp
even,
or this.
Ring a bell or anything.
Me either. To the second reason, my dad is a proud hippie himself, and I took after him in that sense of like never trusting your government being the truth. So just keep that in mind. No. We may say it at the end, but I seriously don't trust our government. So yay.
I mean, there's a lot of things I don't trust in our government.
Yeah. Some of it I'm sure is, well, I don't know.
If they're all reptilians, I don't trust any of it. But until we can prove.
I don't believe in reptilians. All I think of is my nerd flag is going to come up. But there's an episode of Doctor Who where they go underground and they dig into these like tunnel systems, and it's this whole reptilian race that was like there like before the humans. No.
Have you heard of that, where there's people living below us?
Oh, maybe it is like that. I thought you meant like Lord of the Rings.
No, so it's the Lord of the Rings. I think it's like based off the Lord of the Rings. But basically, like people are living below us, between us and the core.
Ooh.
There's like a whole
civilization
down there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like what, that's kind of what it is.
Sunlight, but.
Well, they're lizards.
Oh, these
I'll have to show you like a picture though, because the way they do the makeup, because it's BBC, like they're beautiful. Like the way they make them look, they're like absolutely gorgeous for lizard people. I'd be like, I wouldn't mind being a lizard person if I looked like that. So we're going to narrow down to the Hamptons.
Okay.
When we think, exactly. When we think of the Hamptons, we picture mega mansions or cute summer homes to certain rich people.
Yeah.
Beaches and P. Diddy's white party.
Oh, geez.
Well, your opinion of the Hamptons may be about to change, but don't worry. P. Diddy's white party will still be there. Maybe. I don't really pay attention, so I don't even know.
I don't know anything about his white party.
I've only heard about his white party from Schitt's Creek. So,
oh yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, the Hamptons are where the Manhattanians, which is not a word, I made it up, go on vacation in upstate New York. It's not really in upstate New York though. It's like on the end of Long Island. Anyway, it's known for its beaches, fishing, and even surfing. Yes, East Coast surfing. So famous and cold. Yeah. And a lot of young, rich people vacation there, and a handful of celebrities have houses there, like a very large handful of celebrities. But I do know that there's like locals too. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they're rich. I think
they have to have people in the restaurants to like serve the rich people.
Yeah, and like own the shops and stuff. So
ugh.
I
don't know if I could do that and like stand the clientele. I don't know.
I mean, I lived in a beach town for a couple years, and our tourists were Canadian, so that was I'll be nice. That was fun. Not people from Quebec. Oh. Quebecois are not nice. They're nice. They're just kind of rude. It's fine. No offense if you're from Quebec. I love my family is French Canadian. I love all of you. You're rude tourists. You know, you're old men in your Speedos. I just can't do it. Cool. So, we're gonna narrow it down a little bit more to Montauk, which is the easternmost part of the Hamptons.
I saw this on the show The Affair.
So you know what it is now?
No.
Oh.
I've seen Montauk on the show The Affair.
Oh, you know what you know what Montauk is.
I've heard of Montauk. I'm familiar with it.
I know it exists.
Saw it on a TV
Why
show.
would we go? We're not rich.
Well,
can't enjoy it.
This was focusing on like one of the guys was like the guy who was having the affair was rich, and then Montauk was where the locals lived. That like she was a server and such. So
anyway. That person that you're just talking about. Got it.
Yeah.
Is the affair about pig people? Is that?
No, it's about. Yeah, it is. The guy. Like it goes downhill from there, but it's good. It's good.
Pig people in a dumpster fire. Got it. So Montauk is a town in the Hamptons. It is the furthest east on Long Island. It's about 3 hours from New York City, and it is a haven of beautiful scenery, a historic lighthouse, and Camp Hero State Park.
Okay. So
Camp Hero State Park is a government-owned I think it's state-owned because if it's a state park, it's not federal. It's 754-acre park on Montauk Point. It runs right along the ocean. Like one corner of it there's like beautiful bluffs and then like a little beach thing and then the water. It is a popular spot for horseback riding, fishing, cross-country skiing, hiking, biking, and it's remnants of a World War II military base in its center.
Interesting. I love that.
So, the grounds. The grounds are part public park, part heavily guarded abandoned military base.
Okay.
Guarded by who? We'll get into that. Camp Hero is a series of questions upon questions upon questions. So Montauk has always had strategic significance all the way back to the American Revolution as a lookout point because it's like right between New York and Boston. So it was like big ports.
Right.
And it was also used in the early 1900s during World War I as a naval air station. And I think like the Coast Guard lived there and whatever. That's not when the spooky shit starts happening. That's just beforehand.
Yeah. Okay.
The part of the park that is said to be part of the military base starts dead in the center with the Sage radar tower. But we'll get to that in a minute. There are several bunkers around the part that are not gated off, but I do believe they're sealed with concrete. And the nerve center, which is where the radar tower is off limits. It has gates and signs and whatever. There's another off-limits section down by the bluffs on the eastern side of the island. I don't know if that's true. I'm going to cut that out because I don't think that's true. I think you can go there. Official record issued by the U.S. government is that Camp Hero was originally commissioned by the U.S. Army in World War II, 1942 to be exact. They disguised the grounds as a fishing village, like their gymnasium was designed to look like a church, and their bunkers were painted with like faux windows and were given ornamental roofs and doors and stuff.
So like, I don't remember what the other side of people are called. Like whenever you're against people in a war. But anyway,
the opposing side,
the opposing team,
the Germans.
So when the
opposing team.
So when the opposing team floats up to Montauk, they just see a fishing village and not a military base.
Exactly. That was exactly it. So the fort was originally home to the Army, Navy, and Coast Guard and was known as a U.S. military reservation, I think because they were all like kind of mixed together. And they had many other, they had many weapons installed around the grounds, but the most impressive were two 16-inch, 66-foot naval rifles that were originally designed for battleships. So 16 inches like the diameter of the hole, the cannon, the bullet thing.
Okay.
Cannons? What are they? I don't know what they're called at that point.
Sure.
Bombs? I don't know. These were placed into concrete bunkers and disguised with netting and foliage to protect New York from German U-boats.
Okay.
So they had humongous guns.
Yeah.
After World War II, the fort was shut down by the Army Reserve and the land was used as training facilities. The guns were dismantled in 1946, I think, or 49. I think the bunkers are still there, like where the guns were.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have a picture of it, but I don't know if it's that.
It kind of reminds me of like Gettysburg, where they still have like the old cannons out and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're not usable and they've been like plastered over or something.
Yeah, they like paint it to keep them shiny and new looking. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The guns are not there. It's just the bunkers are still there.
Okay.
The guns are taken down. Moving on to the Cold War and fear of the Soviet Union attacking the States, this brought the U.S. Air Force and the Air Defense Command to Camp Hero. I wrote Hope twice. This is when Camp Hero became a radar station. So what is SAGE radar? To be honest, even the Wikipedia page was kind of confusing as fuck. And as much as I'd love to like dive into what SAGE radar is and how it works, this is not the podcast for that. So if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. I will probably make a mistake, but I tried to just narrow it down so I could just spit it out at you guys.
Right.
I read it like 8 times. So I was like, I think I got it, but I don't know. So SAGE radar became America's first air defense system. SAGE stands for Semi-Automatic Ground Environment, and they had radar and missile bases. So they had 2 bases to run the program or the whatever. This was a large network of radars that would automatically detect a hostile bomber formation as it approached the U.S. mainland. And then I think one thing said like they would shoot at them, and then they also had like jets on standby. So if something approached, if the guns didn't take them out, they could like fly out and take it, get rid of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think in the documentary that I watched, they said that there was like stations out in the ocean that would like feed back into this radar thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any information about those elsewhere, so I don't know if that's real. But it makes sense if they were out in the ocean. Where was I? These detections would be transmitted over phone lines to the nearest SAGE direction center, where they were processed on the largest computer of its time. I couldn't figure out where it originated. I think one place said it was like in England.
The computer?
Like the whole system, like how it was. I don't know if it was us that made it or whatever.
Like invented the SAGE.
Right.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Camp Hero was set up for radar surveillance well before it became part of the SAGE network.
Right.
This is where I got a little confused. So I think it was set up for radar before this.
A different type of radar. And then
yes.
SAGE radar came around.
Yes.
And they were like, all right, cool. Let's do it.
And they like rebuilt things.
Yeah.
So the one by Camp Hero was at the station that the surveillance would be fed to was in Roslyn, at the Roslyn Air National Guard Station, which was on the other end of the island. I don't know how long it takes to cross Long Island. And I honestly don't know if New York is on the same island or if it's its own island. I
feel like I should know.
I feel like I should know too. I spent a summer in New York and I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
So do with that what you will. It's not far. It's literally on the same strip.
Right.
The signal was so strong, it had to be recalibrated several times due to messing with local TV stations. And the radar tower in Montauk, it's a huge tower. Mm-hmm. It was built in 1948 and was renamed the Montauk Air Force Station. In 1957, the Army closed up the Camp Hero portion of the military reservation, but the western half of the facility was used for radar surveillance. So even after like the military kind of wasn't using it as training grounds or anything, they kept the radar portion of it.
Okay.
The rest of the land was donated to New York State, but due to its proximity to the high security radar station, it wasn't used. And Montauk joined the SAGE network in 1958. So the tower was built 10 years before they even joined the network.
Right.
The grounds were state of the art, and it had many new systems developing memory for storage, keyboards, light pens, wide area networks, and modular circuit packaging, whatever the fuck all of that is.
It sounds like computer stuff.
Yeah. Keyboards I got. The rest I don't know. And memory, I guess.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's like where our memory came from in our phones and stuff. This is when the tower that still resides at the center of Park was built, the second of its kind and one of the largest ever made. It still resides there because boaters prefer the radar tower to the lighthouse.
Like, I guess maybe they can see it.
It's more visible, I think.
Yeah.
And I wrote, or maybe that's an excuse so that no one will know what resides underneath the tower.
Yeah, let's ask the boaters, not the government.
Yeah. Montauk was shut down January 31st, 1981. Happy New Year. And it was
January 31st?
Yes. Honestly, that's not the first time I thought that. That's terrible. Whew. I don't know dates. I'm bad with numbers and months. It's fine. It is the only radar of its kind left standing, and it has been made into a historic landmark. So it's going to sit there for a long time. Mm-hmm. Let the curiosity voyage begin at the rumor mill. It is believed that Camp Hero was used for conducting tests and possibly succeeding with mind control, time travel, brainwashing, and of course, the typical mix of aliens and Nazis. I know. Do those go together?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What if the Nazis were aliens?
I know. Hitler could have been an alien and just beamed back up into space.
He wasn't an alien. He was a vegetarian.
Was he?
Yeah. And a painter.
I think I knew about the painting. I didn't know he was a vegan.
I think vegetarian. I think I only know that from a comedian, but he says a lot of like historic jokes, so I think he's quite accurate.
I see.
I don't know. It is believed by many that there is a complex system of tunnels underneath the radar tower that extend to the bluffs. The blueprints show nothing under the tower, not even a basement. So make note of that and start your murder board and put a pin in it. Okay. We're going to put a lot of pins in things. So this is like the bottom of the radar tower, and then this part is the ground.
Section AA, top secret. Got it.
So, like I said, put a pin in that.
Right.
There are park rangers who never seem to admit who they're working for, guarding the closed-off portion of the grounds, which is the nerve center. I think they are just park rangers, but there's like evidence
like
that
national
kind of
park
suggests.
Rangers?
Well, no, because it's a state park. It's not a national park.
Okay, so just New York State Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There is strange footage of this security team, but put a pin in that too. So we have 2 pins.
Okay.
There is a theory about something called the Montauk Chair and also the Montauk Boys. Put pins in those two and maybe start, connecting them with yarn so you can follow. Let's head back to our first pin, the security.
The strange security footage?
Yes.
Okay.
In the History Channel show, The Dark Files, which is where a lot of the information I got from, because it was the most detailed and the most concise, but I did look at a lot of other websites and articles. It is about a documentarian, Christopher Garetano, who has spent 10 years researching Camp Hero. I think he was a local as a kid. Barry Eisler, who is an ex-CIA agent and a true crime journalist, author, and skeptic, Steve Volk. And they're just hunting the truth. They're trying to look for proof that any of this is real. So they eventually connected with a Montauk local, Brian Minnick, who used to break into the nerve center fairly regularly as a teenager, and he had tons of footage.
Interesting.
I mean, typical, you have all these keep out signs, kids are going to break into it.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to deny that the signage and security makes sense. Most outdated and abandoned buildings are off limits due to asbestos and other chemicals and toxins, dilapidated buildings that could collapse on top of you.
Right. Safety.
And in old military bases, some possibly unexploded ammunition that was found or left behind or whatever. So for safety purposes, it does make sense. You would lock that off. Absolutely. However, typically if people are shooting a documentary, they can usually get permission to enter those buildings with safety. Right. They'll wear masks or they'll do safety precautions, or even just to the grounds. Yeah. They weren't even allowed to walk around on the grounds.
Okay.
So they were denied all of this. They can only walk in the public parts of the park. So Brian Minnick's footage is all they have of the sealed off areas. I'm sure some other kids and crap have footage that they've broken in and seen.
Yeah.
He explained that the first time he entered the nerve center, they had more open doors and it was less sealed off. This is in the 80s, I think. And however, or maybe the 90s, I think it was the 90s. However, a month later, there were a lot more boarded up windows and sealed off entrances. So I don't know if he was the first one to get caught breaking in there and I don't know.
Yeah. And they put up more precautions to make sure that more people didn't try to break in or whatever.
Right. And he has camera footage of the security that came on site to chase, it was him and his friends, chase them off of the grounds. Several times they had black or white SUVs. I don't know about you, but state park rangers don't have big fancy unmarked
usually
SUVs.
It's that green, hunter green, forest green.
Yeah. Or
Jeeps.
Today it's a Prius. It's that Prius with the Parks and Rec thing on it. But back then they didn't have Priuses. Or maybe a pickup truck, but that's what they have in Yosemite because it's a national park. So I don't know. So I don't know why they would have giant unmarked SUVs. He also had footage of an unmarked black helicopter off the coast of the Bluffs, seemingly chasing a boat. I'll get to that. So I do want to talk about black helicopters for a second because—
Oh my gosh. Okay. Quick sidebar.
I
definitely
know this one.
Mysteries, and I was looking at black helicopters, and I found that mystery from the UK, and I was like, ooh, and added it to our list.
Yes. I just have a tiny blurb about it.
Good.
I didn't look into it, but
yeah.
In the 1960s, a second conspiracy theory. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's a second aside from this one.
Oh, did I write that? Okay. It emerged where it claimed that the United Nations would arrive in black helicopters to bring the U.S. under UN control. Yeah. This theory reemerged in the 90s under Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
That's all I got. So whether they're just highly paid state park officials with fancy cars and unmarked black helicopters, or maybe a drunk rich kid flying his daddy's helicopter, is up for you to decide. It was chasing a boat though, which I was well, if it was surveilling you, why was it chasing a boat? That doesn't make sense to me. But it was the boat, so if the boat was on the water, the helicopter was here.
Okay.
And it was diving at the boat. It was really bizarre. Either way, it's bizarre. Theories and stories about what has happened in Montauk. So 2 of the most outspoken and problematic witnesses to the Montauk Project are Preston Nichols and Stuart Swordlow. We're going to talk about Preston first. Preston claims to have a degree in parapsychology, psychology, and electrical engineering from the University of Tampa. Another pin, add a pin in that. Preston wrote the book, The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. Now, Preston, since then, has died. He died 2 years ago. And
Seriously?
Yeah, in 2018. Oh, no, I don't think so. He was old. I thought you said seriously, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, people die.
Yes, he's gone. And when this dock crew arrived, so they went to his compound. It's always a good sign someone lives on a compound. He was quite old, and there was literally a man wearing a pot on his head wandering around the compound.
I love that man.
They were like, yeah, talking to him, he seemed really normal, but he had a cook pot on his head.
Well, he didn't want the CIA to be.
It was for the microwave. Yeah, that's literally what he said. Other than that, the grounds looked like a junkyard, and they sat in a room full of electronic equipment. I mean, floor to ceiling, wall to wall equipment, like organized and stacked, and it looked just like a sci-fi movie.
Right. Interesting.
I believe he notes this in the beginning of his book, but I forget. Preston noted that you can read his book as science fiction or as nonfiction. However you want to see it is up to you, which I think for like a kooky conspiracy theorist, that's a kind of like a really nice way to say it. Like to be like, you can call me crazy if you want, or you can just read this as a good book and then just put it down and I don't care. Right. Like he's not invested that people believe him.
Right.
Even though Preston is considered the starting point for the rumors surrounding Montauk, rumors began even further back in the 70s and 80s. That's 20 years before his book was published in the 90s. During the interview, the documentarian asks the question first, and then Volk, the journalist, heads in with his journalistic attitude. And I honestly thought he was perfect. Like he approached it as a journalist, which I think was like really, really good. I love the way that he questioned people. So during this second interview, Preston spoke of quantum electronics, which in the doc, they say they're never heard of, but I Googled it and they are a thing. So they were just, talking.
When was the doc made?
I don't remember. It was before he died. So maybe 2015 or 16.
Okay. So it's pretty recent.
Yeah. It's not super old. So quantum electronics is the area of physics dealing with the effects of quantum mechanics on the behavior of electrons in matter, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm there.
I understand. Even in his old age, Preston remembered going somewhere through the teleporter and ending up in an area disassembling a UFO, and he thought it was out of Montauk. He also claimed that he had worked on the Sage radar tower. He also claimed that they generated another parallel timeline, according to Preston. Okay, I just can't read or write, apparently. He also claimed that they were taking people, shattering their minds, and programming them, and then putting them back together. And that he helped deprogram a few guys on Long Island.
Can we just tear apart that shattering people's minds? I'm sorry, but that's really violent.
I know. Shattering. That's the word he used. Shattering. Yeah, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot for the whole episode. So just hold on to your pants. I don't know. The dock makers were skeptical. If the government wanted an unbelievable source, Preston was it. Volk looked into Preston's claim as an electrical engineer. He showed several of the diagrams in his books to some electrical engineers who said they weren't consistent with anything that they knew. But he wrote an article after the documentary aired. It's not really, so Gaetano's documentary that he made is separate from this. This is from the History Channel show, just so I keep that clear. So after the show aired, Volk wrote an article and explained that he's open to other engineers looking at them and maybe his guys are wrong. He also looked into Preston's claimed electrical engineering degree from the University of Tampa, which we put a pin in. but he could find no record of him graduating. So his degrees might be bullshit.
Yep.
The other main source of fuel to the flames.
Or the University of Tampa erased his record.
It's possible. Because if he's kooky,
right,
maybe they don't want their name in connection.
Because of like, well, I mean, considered kooky. Maybe he's not.
Or maybe they were threatened. You know, they wanted, if they were using Preston, they like wanted him to have no paper trail.
Right.
Smart. The other main source of fuel to the flames in this theory is Stuart Swordlow, who claims to have recovered memories of being a Montauk boy. Apparently there were girls too in one article, but I doubt it. It was the 50s.
And a Montauk boy is the ones that were shattered minds?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna get into it. So this section is called Let's Hear It for the Boys. Because I was trying to be creative. I don't fully want to dive into Swordlow in the document in the History Channel show. He talked very confidently and described that he was taken from 1970 and was used until 83. This is a long time.
13 years, yeah.
Yeah.
What's his family have to say about that?
He explained that his memories were wiped, genetics were altered, and everything he remembered was in nightmares or flashbacks. He also explained that he was an anomaly, as he wasn't a derelict or orphan, and because they couldn't erase his memory. So I say that after. He remembered 9 underground levels at the base and saw children beaten, injured, and murdered. And he explained that the reason was a continuation of experiments done by the Nazis' internment camps. Put a pin in that.
Okay.
There's so many pins. That's why it's like, get your murder board out, because it's a lot. He claims, hopefully, since I finished this morning, hopefully I go back to all the pins. I don't know if I do, but I hope I do. He claims that his parents noticed him missing at times, and he believes, so they would like go in his room and be like, oh, he's not there. But then he was like, he believes that there was a dampening field used on his house so that his parents didn't question why he was missing. Which, like, even the documentarian people, they were like, that's a lot. That's like a bit much. It's not. Never heard of anything like that ever. I'm not saying it's not true. I don't know. He claims that his parents, I just read that. He claimed that their ultimate goal was global mind control and programming. They were building an army of super soldiers ready to be activated at any moment. Bucky Barnes? Winter Soldier? That's literally. Is Captain America real? Because that'd be cool. He also claimed that aliens exist, time travel has been accomplished, humans are not the original inhabitants of the earth, and I wrote lizard people maybe.
Right.
And during this initial interview, it was noted how confident and rehearsed everything sounded. It was almost too good. Volk, so this was when he was being questioned by Gaetano. Well, some of it. Volk went into question Stuart, and he did it as a journalist would. Like the same thing with the parents. Like he was like, well, did your parents not notice? And they noted that like Stuart started blinking a lot and was showing signs of nervousness. And because Volk was being a journalist and digging for, no loophole. There's no loopholes when a good journalist is talking to you. They're going to pick out everything and make sure that you're telling the truth.
Yep.
And he also asked Stuart why Stuart has been allowed to be so vocal. But Stuart claims that he's harassed constantly and that the US government put him in jail for bank fraud from 92 to 93. And as a good journalist, Volk went, yeah, but you pleaded guilty in that, correct? So he already knew that.
Yeah.
And Stuart confirmed that they forced him to by threatening his family. Believable. But if you're trying to put someone away, why would you put them away for a year?
Right.
It's not long enough.
No. Well, depending on what they were doing,
I guess. After a few more questions from Volk, Stuart, and I think it was his wife, some lady was in the room with them, they got very aggressive and refused to participate. They went as far as kicking them all out of their house and claiming that Volk was being hostile towards them. Volk was convinced that no one had approached him as a standard journalist, and he panicked because Volk wasn't letting him give vague answers. But just because he panicked doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Right.
If you just felt like someone was there for ulterior motives or whatever.
Right. You would react differently.
Right. You know what this sounds like? Child endangerment. So, the Montauk Project. Real life winter soldiers? The Montauk boys were supposedly orphans, derelicts, and drug addicts who wouldn't be missed. They were kidnapped off the street and forced into mind control experiments where LSD and other hallucinogens were given to them so that they'd be broken down and rebuilt into super soldiers.
Right.
The goal was to make an army of 1 million super soldiers lying dormant until they're commanded into action by saying like apricot or something.
So this is the Manchurian Candidate.
Yes, they do compare it to that a lot too.
Okay.
Yeah, same. It's that whole idea. It's not a new idea. Well, was it new at the time?
It may have been new at the time.
Yeah. Brian Minnick, remember him? He was the local who broke in and had footage.
Yes.
Well,
the security team.
Yes.
Okay.
He had taken a few pictures of some rooms that were painted very strangely. And yes, the color room looks like graffiti, but there's like no paint on the molding, no paint on the outlets, and no paint on the ceiling. So it was like too professionally done for kids to have broken in and like graffitied this room.
Right.
So it is believed that these were painted before the shutdown. There was also a patterned black and white room, and it is believed that these are LSD rooms. But what would psychedelic researchers say about these rooms? I did not organize this because then I go, speaking of Timothy Leary. So put a pin in the psychedelic rooms, like what the researchers would say. Connect them all with string. Do what you got to do. Add some post-it notes. I don't care. I'm going to keep it. Speaking of Timothy Leary, he was a psychologist and a writer who was a huge advocate for psychedelics and has been rumored to be part of the Montauk Project, specifically the Montauk Boys. However, there is no evidence to back this up, and many of his close friends and family members have claimed that he never would have knowingly participated in a project that had him forcibly giving drugs to anybody, never mind children and teens.
Yeah.
So it was a theory. It's been kind of like, it's not real.
Right.
If anyone asks, I've left this timeline. Along with Preston Nichols talking about time travel and Swordlow claiming that time traveling has existed and that they've participated, another gentleman came forward to discuss his time traveling. That is what I wrote. His time traveling.
His time while time traveling.
His time traveling. I'm keeping it. It has a blue line under it and I don't care. Al Bielek came forward in the 80s with recovered memories of being a scientist working on the Philadelphia Experiment, which is a conspiracy theory that started in 1955. So this is our third conspiracy within the conspiracy.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Experiment consisted of the USS Eldridge, a ship, which began in 1943, where the US government alleged to deploy a new radar technology on a ship, cloaking it and apparently jumping 40 years into the future and arriving at Camp Hero, is what Bielek claims. And then Wikipedia says other things. So one of the tests on the USS Eldridge rendered the ship invisible and a greenish fog remained. The sailors remember being brought down with a bout of nausea, and when the ship returned, some crew members, allegedly, were embedded in metal structures around the ship, and that some sailors went completely bananas, Wikipedia said. Wow. I didn't say that. Wikipedia did.
Right.
It also once, instead of disappearing, jumped from Philadelphia to Virginia, over 200 miles away, and it was spotted by sailors on a different ship. And when the Eldridge disappeared again and returned to Philadelphia, it is said that the ship went approximately 10 minutes back in time.
I love that conspiracy, the Philadelphia Experiment.
Yeah.
I have like, I haven't researched it or anything, but I've listened about it a lot. And
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And all these, because there's some more that I'm going to talk about, I just have little tiny blurbs. So like, if we ever want to do a deep dive,
we will.
I'm into it. I just
it's
wanted to get it all in there. It's also claimed that the crew is subjected to brainwashing. Sound familiar? This is a conspiracy that is labeled mainly a hoax, and there has been testing and inconsistent timelines. But that's a story for another day, and JP can tell it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, y'all.
Whenever it happens.
Whenever it happens.
Al Bielek claims that the bluff on the east side of the park is linked to a tunnel system that goes underneath the nerve center, and then that's where the time travel would happen. He said there was devices buried in the ground, and the time travel would happen like out of the tunnels of the bluff.
I see.
So, tying everything together and some remaining information. Remember me mentioning the Montauk Chair way in the beginning? Okay. So allegedly, Nichols and Bielek made this chair together in the 1970s. It was literally a chair that used electromagnetics to amplify psychic powers. At one point, the head honchos told Nichols to leave the chair on, and he did until August 12th, 1983. Remember, the base was shut down in 81. Just want to put that out there. By doing this, they intended to open a time wormhole to 1943, which is how Bielek came in on the Eldridge. That's all I have on that.
Wow. Okay.
The timelines are already sketch as fuck, so I don't really know.
This is great.
The Montauk Monster. I have a picture for you. In 2008, in 2008, a bizarre animal carcass washed ashore in downtown Montauk. Obviously, this strange creature went viral.
I think he had webbed hands, webbed feet, and
a beak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of this.
There you go. This guy. This little. What the fuck is that?
Oh my gosh.
Like, what is it though?
Okay, so that's supposedly a real picture?
Yes. That's the picture that was like in all the newspapers and stuff.
From 2008?
Yep.
And they've never identified what it is? It looks like a shaved dog.
I think it looks like an uncooked turkey.
Yeah. It looks like a shaved dog with, like, on the back side, and then the front side is
yeah, what is that?
like
please tell me what you think.
Claws with the head of
like
a giant bird.
Yeah, but its eyes are like in the front, where I feel like parrots have like
the eyes are definitely
set eyes.
But yeah, creepy.
You're like, I've heard of that. Never seen it. There it is. There are several possible identifications that have been canceled out by Stony Brook University's Living Marine Resources Institute. That is a fucking mouthful. Bulmer. It has been deemed fake, although their next guess would be a diseased dog or coyote that had been out to sea for a long time. Yeah, super long. It's impossible to be, but then they say it's impossible that it's a raccoon because it's like out of proportion. It's not a sea turtle because sea turtles don't have fur or whatever. It's not a rodent, a dog or coyote, or a sheep or any other sheep, like not a goat or anything. Some have identified it, including Jeff Gorwin, which I don't know if you ever watched Animal Planet, but I used to love his show as a kid.
Yeah, I loved him. I actually had a crush on him.
It's because after Steve Irwin died, he was the next best thing to watch. Hot. Yeah. Was he? I don't really remember what he looked like.
In my mind, he was. It was the Jeff Gorwin Experience.
Yes, that's the name of the show. So, including him, he identified it as a raccoon. But like I said, it wasn't proportionate with a raccoon. It's like legs were not the right size for its body. Also, what the fuck is up with its face?
Yeah.
And raccoons have hands. Okay. Now, we're going to keep moving on. So a few more things that our favorite found footage man has found. Brian Minnick, he found a machine labeled Climate Changer, which he got on camera. So if you think chemtrails and climate control is not run by the government, you're lying to yourself. He also found bills for food being ordered back in the late 80s, and it was like $80,000 a month on each receipt.
For food?
The Park Service was in charge in 1984. This is the late 80s. So who the fuck is ordering $80,000 worth of food?
A year?
I think, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, so when they found these papers, they got chased off the property and they ended up throwing the docs in the air, so they lost them.
Of course. Because they threw the docs in the air. I'm sorry, but if you're going to break into a federal or state facility for evidence of something, you don't just fucking throw it in the air. You do everything you can to keep those papers and all of your evidence safe.
Exactly. So, and I think like in the doc, he was like, "It's my biggest regret." And the journalist was like, "Mine too," because I don't believe you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He also had footage of locked doors and sealed entrances, which were a suggestion of a vast underground tunnel system, but they don't have like a full mapping. Like they would literally be like looking at a hole in the ground and there would be like a slight tunnel and then there'd be like concrete. So, but there's supposed to be nothing under that building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So potential proof, or at least some concrete, get it, information. Yeah. I didn't do that on purpose, but it's there. I really did it. First, let's talk really quickly about similar experiments. We're going to talk they're very just short little blurbs. Project Stargate. These are all proven things that people have admitted to being a part of or doing. So these are real governmental experiments. Project Stargate was a secret U.S. Army unit in Fort Meade, Maryland by the Defense Intelligence Agency and SRI International, which is a contractor from California, and it was established in 1978. It was a project dedicated to harnessing psychic and supernatural phenomena for spying and military uses. Supposedly, they succeeded to a certain degree. The project ended in 1995 and was deemed unuseful in any, that's not a word, non-useful, whatever, in any military operation. After its shut down, it stopped being a secret, and the CIA suggests that the information that seems to be true has been altered or doctored. Mm-hmm. So that's one. Tuskegee. Yeah. This one's awful. I'm just going to put that out there. This one's really awful. The Tuskegee Experiment was conducted in 1932 in Alabama, by the U.S. Public Health Service. 600 African Americans were enrolled in the project with the promise of free medical care for taking part in the experiment. They were primarily poor and some had never visited a doctor's office. 399 of those men had syphilis and 201 did not. They were all told that they were being treated for bad blood, although they weren't being treated for anything. The project was to discern what happened if syphilis went untreated in African American men.
Oh my God.
They were given placebos, blood tests, x-rays, spinal taps, and eventually autopsies were performed if they had died.
Yeah.
So this is in 32.
Okay.
Penicillin was discovered as the cure for syphilis in 1943. None of the infected subjects were given the cure.
Yeah.
They also weren't given proper care once the untreated disease caused blindness, insanity, or other severe health problems, including death.
Yep.
This experiment is obviously latent with racism and other issues. It lasted for 40 years, and the last living survivor passed away in 2004.
Wow.
I think he got a presidential medal or something.
I hope that he got something.
I know, for real. Whew.
Even that's not enough.
Sorry. No, not even. So that one's shitty. Operation Paperclip. I had heard of this one. A secret program carried out by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, which consisted of 1,600 or more German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of whom were former members and leaders of the Nazi Party. These men were taken from Germany to the U.S. between 1945 and 1959. They were to work for the American government during the Cold War. The U.S. wanted to harness German intelligence to help develop America's chemical and biological arsenal and to ensure that the Soviet Union didn't get their hands on that information. President Truman sanctioned the operation, but had originally forbade them from recruiting any members of the Nazi Party or even active Nazi supporters. But the CIA ignored it and whitewashed any incriminating evidence and giving them new identities altogether.
Wow.
And I think a lot of them were like the scientists that did conduct experiments on the Jewish people in the internment camps. So, yay, America. The most obvious, MK Ultra.
Oh, yeah.
Classified CIA project that ran from 1953 to 1973. It was designed to examine the potential use of LSD and other drugs for mind control, psychological torture, and for information gathering. For gathering information. The details of the experiment became public in 1975 when a congressional investigation was conducted to look into the various illegal activities the CIA was involved in. Come on, CIA. MK Ultra. I know you're listening to me.
MK Ultra?
No, it's the CIA. MK Ultra was a response to the Cold War, where they conducted more than 150 human experiments, although the number is really, they don't really know. Some subjects knew they were a part of the study and some did not. These experiments involved psychedelics, paralytics, and electroshock therapy. They took place in in universities, hospitals, and prisons in the US and Canada. Our last one, because it's one of the worst things I've ever heard of. It's actually close to you. Holmesburg Prison. Do you know this one?
No.
It's in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I've never heard of it. The prison looks like a star. Yeah, so it's in Philadelphia, which I was like, I've only heard of that other prison in Philadelphia, the like super haunted one, or insane asylum. No, it's a prison. It's like right off the main street.
Yeah.
One of the main streets. Holmesburg was in operation for almost 100 years. They opened the doors in 1896 and they were shut down in 1995. The prisoners, I don't have a year that this started, but they became test subjects in decades-long experiments that included dermatological, pharmaceutical, and biochemical weapons research projects. This is all known as fact. The 1998 book, Acres of Skin, Human Experiments at Holmesburg Prison by Alan Hornblum is a description of the different medical experiments that were conducted on the prison inmates. And a lot of them are like firsthand accounts.
Wow. That's terrifying.
It's awful. The Dark Files crew, so the History Channel crew, got to interview Hornblum in the prison itself, where he explained that the army came in 1963 and they were looking for the Manchurian candidate using LSD experimentation. This included mind control experiments from 63 to either 71 or 72. And some of these experiments, just as an example, applied dioxin to the faces and backs of prisoners, which is the most carcinogenic part of Agent Orange.
Ooh.
The crew even got to question some survivors of the experiments. One of them explained how they had to sign a consent form, but they were told that the experiments were safe and they were not allowed to contact their lawyers before signing the form.
Of course not.
One explained an incident, this is horrible. One explained an incident where some strips were put on his back. He went back to his cell, he was freezing and could taste metal. He begged his cellmate to take them off, so his cellmate obliged and took the strips off his back and put them on the wall. Whatever was on them ate the paint off the wall.
What the fuck?
Albert Kilgman was the doctor in charge. He's admitted that he'd do it all again.
Like,
so that's the most fucked up thing that you've ever heard that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Ugh. We're going back to some of our previous pins. The Lsd Rooms and the Timothy Leary connection.
Yeah.
Some psychedelic researchers say that the rooms do look like they were designed for LSD. One, who worked personally with Leary, did not. I think he only asked like 3 though. Zach Leary, who's Timothy Leary's son, all said that Timothy, I already said that. All said that Timothy Leary wouldn't have been involved.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll bet the family of the doctor from the last thing we talked about also wouldn't say that. And you know what I mean? You don't know people's like not true intentions, but the core of how evil they could be.
Well, and think your family might not know.
Right.
And if you work for the government, if you work for the government, you are perfectly at liberty to say, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, why would they know?
Yeah.
I think they're just judging off of his personality.
Yeah.
He also said, so Zach Leary's words were, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, he wouldn't have knowingly participated with the military or the government to weaponize the very drug that he thought to be a tool for freedom. So they didn't believe he was involved in any way. Like, it went against Timothy Leary's personal beliefs of what psychedelics were for.
Right.
So if the rooms had the potential for being LSD rooms, what else could they be? Why would the government have painted them that way? Because it wasn't kids if there was paint to protect the molding and the outlets.
Yeah.
Like, what would the other purpose be?
I have no idea.
Me either.
I'm trying to like experimentation of some kind. So you would think, oh, okay, LSD or
torture. But if you were torturing people, you would give them LSD and then put them in a room like that.
Yeah, you could. Or you could just, I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
And this building was used for radar, and then it wasn't like a place they kept prisoners of war or anything.
Yeah.
You know, because it was like training facility. Maybe it's training. Camouflage? I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. Last but not least, the dock crew had geophysicists explore the site at Camp Hero. The team examined the grounds using ground penetrating radar, which is the highest resolution underground, the magnetometer, magnetometer, which finds iron-bearing objects, and electroresistivity imaging, which took a slice out of sections and would look for like electrical properties.
Right.
They started at the bluff where time travel is said to have happened. And they also head to the Sage radar tower to see if there's any underground tunnels. They couldn't obviously go into the grounds, but they just around the fences, like they got as close as they could.
Right.
And a while later, so like they do that kind of in the beginning of the documentary, and then they don't learn the answers till the end, because they have to go and find the results. So underground tests of the bluff, they didn't find much, but the radar gave them depressed areas of soil, and the response was disrupted a lot, which typically means some type of excavation activity occurred there. They don't know what kind of digging that could mean. It could mean graves or barrels or
graves.
Yeah.
But I could see barrels like hiding evidence of some sort.
Or just like leftover some type of radioactive something that you don't have anywhere else to put, you know?
Right.
Whatever it was, the soil was disturbed. Sage radar, or the Sage radar area, they used the electrical imaging. They found down 60 feet from the entrance gate to the main road. One area was 20 and 30 feet in diameter, 20 or 30 feet. I don't know, something like that. And 20 feet in depth. Soils that had, there was soil that had a lot of metal in them, and it could be buried concrete. They claim that there'd be no natural thing, so it has to be man-made, but there's not supposed to be anything under there. So what is it?
Like a secret underground.
Right? I hope I reached all my pins. What are your thoughts before I wrap it up?
I could definitely see things happening there, especially because this is like the Northeast, so it's a good area. It's also in a big like city and stuff, so it's like it's a good area for that sort of testing if you're testing LSD or anything like that.
Yeah.
Also, around that time, the wormhole thing was going on.
Which wormhole?
Where they were testing LSD as a truth serum.
Yes.
So I could see them saying, well, what else does LSD do? Let's test it on like kids and see if like we can get, I could definitely see this happening because we know that the government did practice with LSD in the past around these times.
Well, that's why I brought up all those other experiments. They're all like in response to the Cold War or World War II, and they were all human experiments, except for Tuskegee.
I would not be surprised if in probably like 50 to 60 years, there's files that are unclassified about things going on there. I do think that there's probably an underground. Although I believe like the two guys, I don't really believe them. Not so much. They seem like they're hardcore conspiracy theorists and stuff, and that they might make up something to go along with their story.
But I also think sometimes that those are the people that are hiding in plain sight, just like the journalist said. Like if you wanted a conspiracy theorist to make people not believe in it, they're perfect.
And if one of them was a Montauk boy and was fucked up on LSD for most of his childhood, what was it, 13 years?
Yeah.
Then I could definitely see him having...
Well, LSD doesn't leave your bloodstream.
Those sorts of struggles, right. So
you could also have weird flashbacks to like bad trips.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
No, that's it.
Yeah. I think it's possible. I don't believe the time travel stuff is real or I do believe there's something underground or something sketchy under the bluffs.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's tunnels or graves or barrels or whatever. It also could be from a different time. It could be from before. I don't know how far back that radar, that type of imaging goes,
Right. Well, I think it can't go back too far. Excuse me. I don't think it can go back that far because like maybe 100 years or so, because then
but it was used in World War I.
Yeah.
It was used in World War I, which is probably, it was like 100 years ago. So
right. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it could be real.
I think it definitely has
I think some of it's real.
Yeah. Has elements that are real and then elements that were fabricated.
Yes. So let's wrap it up. We know that something is underground, even though they claim that nothing is there. We know that. That is a fact. We know that the government has had no problems experimenting on humans, especially at-risk humans, with or without their consent.
Right.
We know that our government, especially in America, is untrustworthy. And you can't spell America without Erica. We've learned that I love cases with pop culture references. And besides the case as a whole being a super clue, I also left some subliminal rumors in some of my titles throughout our episode. I'm sure you can guess what part of pop culture is based off of Camp Hero. Do you want to take a stab at it before I tell you?
Well, yeah, Winter Soldier, Captain America.
It's not, but I feel like that's based off of kind of all of those ideas. Is that your guess? Do you want to do one more guess or no?
I can't think of anything else.
Oh, you're going to be so mad when I say it.
What if I'm like, I don't know this?
You're going to know it. If you picked your favorite bunch of nerds from the 80s and a telekinetic girl who's obsessed with Egos, respectfully, then you've guessed right. Stranger Things was actually originally titled Montauk before it was moved to Hawkins, Indiana.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So if you or someone in your family was subjected to governmental experimentation, or if you yourself has broken onto the grounds of Camp Zero, I'm not telling you to, it's illegal and you'd be trespassing. Or if you'd like to share your own theories, I don't know if I want to know about the experimentation.
I do.
Okay, then yeah. JP will check the email. Please feel free to email us at mrreticle@gmail.com. Follow us at Mr. Reticle on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't play with strangers.
And for sure, do not trust your government.
And don't keep the curiosity door locked. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying, I think I Googled Camp Hope at some point, and it brought me to some like Jesus camp type situation. I was like, that's not what I'm looking for.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So if you need to find the Lord,